Good evening and welcome to our Sunday programming. We are talking to an awesome candidate today for Secretary of the State of Connecticut. Denise Merrill is going to be handing off the torch to Stephanie Thomas from Norwalk. She's currently a state representative for the state of Connecticut already. She's already well versed and understands the workings and the inner workings of Hartford, Connecticut and our General Assembly. Now she's going to move over to the Secretary of State's office. We are so excited to talk to her tonight. She is representing my hometown, Norwalk, Connecticut. And so we are so excited and so proud to have her on our program tonight. So we will be talking to Stephanie Thomas on the other side of this promo video.
Let's go! Ho, ho!
And welcome, Stephanie Thomas. How are you? Welcome to Hampton Action Now.
I am good. Thank you, Rhonda. I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to this. And I like how you said I was going to be Secretary of State. So, let's just put it out there.
Yes, we got to just name it. And, that's what they say at church. You got to name it and claim it. And that's what we're going to do. Yeah. So welcome to our program. We do community conversations. We've done this all the way through the pandemic just to stay in touch with our community here in New Haven and Hampden area. So we're so excited to meet you tonight and talk with you. I want to start off with, I want to say that I know that you have received enormous endorsements from around the state, from Senator Anwar, Senator Cabrera, and almost the entire General Assembly. But I think the most really amazing and most powerful endorsement that you received was from our current sitting Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, who's been in this position for 10 years, has done amazing work to really, guard our democracy here in Connecticut. So let's just stand by for a second. Let's just watch this video. It was really beautiful and amazing. Stand by 1 second. Let's run it.
Hi, I'm Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State of Connecticut. The job of Secretary of State has never been more important than it is today. Around the country, efforts have been made to suppress the vote. Not here in Connecticut. We are proud of our elections here in Connecticut, and we need a person as Secretary of the State who will continue that job of making sure that Connecticut has safe and secure elections and that every person is able to vote securely and fairly. There is only one person in my mind that fits that bill for this job, and that person is Stephanie Thomas. Not only has she been in Hartford as a state representative on the committee that grapples with election issues, but she also has a clear, deep understanding of what's at stake. She has a true passion for the issues, and I believe she is that person who will fight for us, both here in Connecticut and at the national level. That's what we need. I think she would be ready on day one to take over this job. So I am proud to support Stephanie Thomas as the next Secretary of the State.
That was amazing. Right? It was that endorsement along with the convention in May. I was there. When the first round of votes came in, we voted for you right out the gate. Our group, it was the 8th district of DTC, the 1st, the 8th, the 3rd, the 5th. We all were like, Stephanie, and then we didn't, and so when the first, you look shocked. Tell me about that moment.
I got into this race after all the other candidates, and you may recall, we started with 7 people total in the field. So, I have not been a political insider. I just got involved with politics in 2017 after a certain presidential election. I, first ran for office in 2018 and lost by a few hundred votes. So I ran again in 2020 and won. But a lot of people around the state don't know me. Certainly in my area, So, it was an uphill climb, a little bit of David and Goliath, and I was shocked, but I was gratified to have won all 3 rounds of the voting.
You sure did, and won it handily. Like there was no question. I'm going to just put up a picture of, that was my favorite picture. You were like, oh my God. Like we all were just like amazed. It was just an awesome moment.
Yeah, you may recall, I didn't even have an acceptance speech. I hadn't written anything.
That was so great. It was so great. You and Eric Russell were, I think both of you guys were shocked, but you received overwhelming support that day in May at the convention. So tell us a little bit about you and your legislative priorities of obviously, about, defending our democracy, but just what specifically?
I think my passion for this role, a lot of it comes from, I feel like I'm living the American dream. Most people don't know a lot about my background. I grew up very poor, but in a wealthy town. So I had a great public school education, but little else. And, I worked really hard. And like many people of color in my earliest days, I felt, especially in the town I grew up in, I definitely felt the effects of racism and and my mother just never let us fall prey to that. And she knew that if we got a good education and worked hard, we could do whatever we wanted to. And that was the message I had growing up. So I went on and went to college and decided to devote my career to nonprofits and public service and giving back in that way. It was only after that presidential election that I started getting a little more involved. And what I learned was how few people were actively engaged in our political system, but yet it controls just about everything we do. So my passion comes from getting more people involved so that our policy starts to match the values of the people that are governed by it.
So you must be really amazed, like I am, watching the January 6th hearings. It's kind of makes the hair on my arm stand up.
It's chilling.
Yeah, it makes me a little scared because the lot of all the action that went on to try to undermine our vote. That sacred piece of paper known as a ballot is the glue that holds everything together. And it's amazing. What are your thoughts on the January 6th hearings? And
I definitely have found them to be chilling and almost too disturbing to watch at times. I thought Liz Cheney put it best in her closing. She said something like, this was a premeditated attempt to steal an election. And if that weren't disturbing enough in and of itself, the fact that so many people knew it was happening, stood by and said nothing, and still defended. And worse, you mentioned in your opening, I vice chair, or Denise mentioned it, I vice chair our elections committee in Hartford. And I see people come and testify and give comments time and time again, and they still believe this narrative. They talk about all the voter fraud in Connecticut, which have been investigated. All the complaints that have been filed have been investigated. And just like we saw on the national scene, they've been refuted. So it's really dangerous, I think, for our our form of democracy to have this narrative out there. And it's why I feel so passionately about civic education and civic engagement.
It's really dangerous too, because I think that, there was about in 2020's election, that was the election of our lifetime, really. It was a very historic election. We still in Connecticut had over 500,000 registered voters didn't come to the polls, which is, I know they say we had record breaking turnout, but it still was.
We've just always had bad turnout, so record breaking is still like okay.
Right. So I was like, okay, that's still okay, but where are those 500,000 people, and why are they not engaged? And what are we doing, to throw, more dollars to do PSAs and education, especially the young people, that 18 to 25-year-olds, to get them to understand how important it is, not just to register, but to participate.
Yeah. Here's what I find, and why I got in the race in the first place. I, like everybody else, was sitting back trying to figure out which candidate I would support. But between getting involved in politics so late in my life, going out door knocking and campaigning, and now serving in the GAE committee, the elections committee, it has become increasingly clear to me that people know nothing about how our government works. They don't know their state rep from their congressional rep. They don't know who to go to with certain types of issues. And they certainly don't know, or most people don't, testify in front of the legislature or call their representative and ask for a meeting to discuss an issue that they care about. So what I felt was missing from the conversation, we always talk about voter access, voter registration, and of course, that's very important. But based on the laws we just passed here in Connecticut, it felt to me like we had a singular opportunity right now at this point in time to focus on civic education and civic engagement, and not just for kids, but for adults as well. Because once you graduate from high school, that's it. You're on your own. And nothing else is given to you. And part of the issue is that here in America, we always talk about our civic responsibility being voting, but that is just one day a year. And I want everyone to really understand and know that that is not enough to keep a democracy on its tracks. We have to work those other 384 days a year, and I'd like to show them how.
Yeah, it is really amazing. There's so many ways that I believe our state is really way behind. I have a friend that, lives in Chicago, and they go up to a kiosk and they put their license and they vote and they go on about, and then you have folks that were doing the drive up voting, I believe, in parts of the country, and then the Saturdays and the Sundays. I mean, I always was amazed that our state is still doing this, one day, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I know they just recently in the last 20 years, I guess, to even extended it to 8 o'clock. One day, isn't that? I mean, it's just.
Day. Oh, it's crazy. But so we are I think we may now be the last state, or there might be one other that doesn't have either or neither early voting nor no excuse absentee voting. And that is because it's built into our constitution, our state constitution, which requires a constitutional amendment to make any change. So like, even if you wanted to open the polls like a little earlier or a day early, we have to pass this constitutional amendment. And when people hear like, we're changing our constitution, I think they get nervous, even though every other state has some form of this. So we are really behind the times.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing a little tiny bit of research. I know that part of the Constitution was written in the early 1800s.
But yet it's been amended many, many times. So I tell people, don't get nervous when you hear it. It was amended the first time during the Civil War to allow soldiers to vote by absentee ballot. So it has been amended. I believe the most recent amendment was in the 1970s to allow poll workers, if they were working at a poll other than their own, to vote by absentee ballot.
Sure.
So I think, this November, that constitutional amendment will be on the ballot. So vote yes if you would like Connecticut to join most other states in the nation to allow for some sort of early voting.
Yeah, I remember when that was on the ballot some years ago. I guess it was 2016.
2014.
2014, yes. And it was the most confusing language.
It was very confusing. Sometimes, I'm one of them, but sometimes legislators get a little too.
There was too many lawyers involved, and I think that this one would be way better, this language. And I think we'll, because of 2020 and then of course January 6th of 2021 and all the things that have happened, people seem to be a lot more aware now of what is at stake. There's a lot at stake in these elections.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the two cases that are coming up on the Supreme Court docket this coming fall that have to do with voting. And there are you know, it could have very widespread ramifications. The same way we saw Roe v. Wade, we thought it was settled law, could never be touched again. Well, the same is true of our voting rights. Most people forget that the right to vote is not built into our country's constitution, because at that time, many people were denied the vote. So it's something that we have to fight for and remember to fight for every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a disciple of John Lewis. I always say that because I know, without that ballot and without, each person's vote counting and you having the right to select your own representation, this doesn't work. Our democracy, our republic doesn't work. None of it works. It's a sacred piece of paper. It's a piece of paper of trust. It says, I trust you with my money, my child's education, my public safety. I mean, it's a lot of things that we entrust our government to do and our leaders.
Yeah.
And if we don't really guard that process, then what do we do? I mean, that's why you said the January 6th hearings are so chilling and a little scary to watch.
Yeah. And it's more about, we definitely have to protect the right to vote, but I just feel so strongly that we also have to protect the ways that people can engage. And here in Connecticut, we're very fortunate. We have a very open government. There are a lot of resources available, information available on various websites, et cetera. And like I said, I feel like if anyone called their state representative, state senator, you can have a conversation, exchange emails. So we just have to also fight to make sure that it stays that open and accessible, and that people can be represented by people that are like them in their region. So if you think about something like gerrymandering, there is a Supreme Court case coming up this fall about that. And if it rules the wrong way, that would open up the way gerrymandering used to be and still is in many places, but not so much in Connecticut. But if it went to a federal law, we could go backwards, where, districts are cut up so that maybe communities of color are divided and don't have an opportunity to have someone who looks like them or who has had their experience. So there's a lot at stake right now, and I couldn't be more serious about protecting it.
Yes. I mean, I just think that you are the perfect candidate for this position because you are on the GAE committee right now. You have already been in the General Assembly for, like you said, since 2017.
No, only in the GA. I'm a first term. I first ran back then, but yeah, it feels like I've been there longer because it's.
It feels like you went longer. Okay. Well, you are a newcomer. You're right. You are a newcomer to the General Assembly, which makes this even more amazing. I think that the movement that we saw at our Democratic State Convention was a state and a electorate that is hungry for change in Connecticut. We really are looking for representation, but from regular folk. This is regular people, and that's been the biggest problem. That's what's been, I think, in my travels around the state and around the country, people have lost their interest in voting and participating in the political process because it's like, well, it's the same person gets elected over and over again for 20, 30 years. And
I would say, look in the mirror, right? I mean, I do feel like we have to do our job we say voting is our highest ideal. So I think as a state, we have to invest in that. And I will be fighting for more resources to the Secretary's office. But I try to make the connection. I was just speaking this morning at an event, and I was talking about, my mother and my father, for totally different reasons, had a hard time, right? We all have hard things happen to us in life, and they raised these 4 kids. And, I'm running for Secretary of the State. Like, my sister's child is a doctor now, and my other sister was a missionary and is now getting her BA in her late 50s from Harvard. Like there's all this stuff. And my brother's great, running a really good company. So we're doing all these things, but I think about all the policies that made it possible, like whether it was the program that my brother went into when he joined the Navy that enabled him to go to an Ivy League college and all of that, or, the free counseling that my mother got after she went through some things. And these are all policies that are the result of someone's vote, whether it was a local town government, state legislature, or federal bill. And when I hear people say their vote doesn't matter, it does matter, because it's only by having good people in these roles who push these policies forward that they touch all these human lives. So some legislator, God knows when, in like 1973, never thought that by passing a law that helped my mother, that I would one day be here running for Secretary of the State. So you don't know how it's going to play out, but you have to vote and try to get those people in those seats who want to make positive change. I agree about it.
Well, it's a good thing to be passionate about. I agree with you 100%. I mean, my father and mother, same thing. My mother was, able to go to college and go to, grad school and all that in the 1950s and the 60s. Wow. I mean, that's unheard of, right? Yeah. My brother and I, we all went to school and got advanced degrees and things. That wasn't, see, we take it all for granted. Yeah. I mean, just in my mother's lifetime, this was a luxury. Yeah. This was a luxury only for people who had the money and the financial means to do it. Mm-hmm. If you didn't, you just didn't go. You just did whatever work that you could do to feed yourself and keep a roof over your head. Now you can, there's again, policies that have been in place for, even like federal student loans and these things that you can do. I mean, you can now get this education, a very good one, to be able to be in a position to edify and build and grow your community and be a great part of your community, a positive part. And the only way that works is through that ballot.
100%.
And that leadership.
Yes. Everything that happens goes through some ballot box. So we better meet that ballot box. When I think about municipal elections, for example, where there might be like 30% turnout, I was talking to someone just yesterday about how the mayor of their town won, and I forget, the town had maybe 100,000 people, somewhere in there, won with like 9,000 votes. Like, that's it. Like, that's all who showed up. And then people are saying that government is not meeting them where they are because it's not representative, because we don't know what the people want because they're not showing up at the polls. And I am invested and committed to doing everything I can, to push out information, get into communities, be a face around the state, trying to create this culture of these other 384 days to teach people that if you do show up, you will be heard and you will see change.
Yes. I mean, you have to show up. And I think that Connecticut's doing the best they can to, give additional access to, the ballot with regard to times. I think the biggest movement will be, the early voting and the no excuse absentee voting. I mean, that's the only thing I think right now where we're hugely behind.
We are hugely behind. No excuse absentee voting. We have to wait till it's voted on again in 2023 and hopefully on the ballot to the people in 2024. People also don't realize we did pass automatic voter registration, which is hugely impactful to, through agencies like DSS or the Department of Labor. It will automatically register people to vote who interact with those agencies. It will take some time to roll out. I'm hoping to hasten the speed. Right now, they're saying about 5 to 7 years or more. I would like to shave some time off of that, but it requires a lot of back-end computer work. But that will also have a huge impact, I think.
And that's another thing that we were all wondering is like, when are we going to take, our entire system, digital, and not really I mean, I know we need a piece of paper, but like, it's 2022.
It's
At what
tricky.
point is some of this going to be digitized somehow?
So Connecticut has some challenges that other states don't have, namely the fact that we have no county government. That does actually create some logistic issues because every one of our 169 towns have to do these things separately. And it's really hard when you're comparing a town of 3,000 to a town of, 120,000. There are some differences. So, I do think the nation is going to be moving in that direction. I think it would be best served as a federal law, but it's short of that. It's what we will look at various things, but right now we are most likely talking about in-person early voting, but then of course, no excuse absentee voting would be by mail. And I, for one, do support mailing out absentee ballot applications and making sure they're matched with the barcodes. I do think that would help a lot more people. I'm getting calls, even in my campaign now, saying, we're still waiting for our ballot to arrive in the mail. I mean, I'm sorry, not our ballot, our application.
The application,
because
Lord.
it was done during COVID, and people really appreciated that because no one knows how this stuff, not no one, but a lot of people don't know how this works. And it's difficult to have to go online, download a PDF, print it out, fill it out, mail it in. It's complicated. And some people, I know when I was campaigning in 2020, a lot of people said, I don't have a printer, or my printer broke, or I don't have ink in my printer, or I can't find a stamp. I mean, there's all these barriers that it just takes effort. But yeah, I'll stop there. But one day, Rhonda.
I know. I'm so excited for that day because it just seems like, we have electronic medical records. I mean, everything we do out of Yale now is all electronic.
I mean, we do have to worry about cybersecurity, right? And no matter what, I am a fan, and it's considered best in class to make sure there's a paper backup.
Yes.
Because hacking, it is a real thing. Again, in Connecticut, we actually benefit from having the 169 towns because someone would actually have to hack each town. Sorry, I just saw that.
Oh yeah.
Comment.
We have people watching.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah. So, it'll be really exciting. I know you would absolutely be the person to carry the Denise Merrill torch into the next into our new millennium that we're actually in, and being able to, pick up where she left off on all the really awesome work that she's been doing all these years. And I'm just so excited to watch it roll out. Tell us what you need for your campaign. I know you have a primary coming up. So tell us how your campaign's going. What do you need? Do you need door knocking and yard lawn signs? What do you need?
I like this question. I need everything. No, campaign's going great. I've been driving around the state. I probably do almost 300 miles every single day, literally northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, all the middle. And I just go out talking to people. I've had a great reception. People really resonate with my platform and what I'm hoping to accomplish in the role. There is a primary on August 9th. Getting the word out about the primary. Many people don't know it's happening. You can find me on row A. So I encourage everyone to go out and vote. If you don't know, if you have a uncertain work schedule or something like that, you can vote by absentee ballot by going to your town hall. I think it's getting a little late to do it by mail. So I would recommend going to your town hall. You can get it done in your town clerk's office in 5 minutes. Volunteers, door knocking, yes. Phone banking, yes. Texting, yes. If you go to votestephaniethomas.com, you can find a way to sign up to volunteer. And we're out there. We're doing phone banks every single night from now through the election. We do texting every single day, and also door knocking and lit drops. So if anyone wants to help, give us a call.
Do you have your schedule out yet of where you're going to be on election day so people can come and meet you?
I don't have that schedule out yet, but that's a good point. Maybe we'll put it on our website just so people can find it. Yeah.
Yes, because a lot of people would probably want to come down and visit you and meet you and talk with you about, the issues and things that are passionate to them on the day of the election as they're going in. So that would be great. And I'd love to know too, because I'd love to come.
That would be great. Yeah.
I'd love to come and stand the polls for you on election day. So,
we need poll standers. So if your town, you'd like to volunteer at the polls, let us know.
I definitely will. So any final words to wrap up tonight's talk with regard to your legislative priorities? What will you be doing on day one once you're elected into office?
I'll just touch on the one thing we didn't talk about, which is the other side of the job, which has to do with business services. So anytime someone opens a business, for example, they're filing their paperwork through the secretary's office. And I'm a small business owner myself. So, and I serve on the Commerce Committee. So that is also an area of passion for me, just making sure that business owners can access all the many programs, services, grants, etc., where I know when I open my business, you're working 60 hours a week. Like you don't have time to Google for hours trying to find these resources. So I plan to be very proactive in getting that information out to business owners because I'll have the data. I'll know if they're minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, big, small, and I think that is one thing I would like to change and just try to be more proactive and meet people. I think my mantra is I need to meet people where they are instead of making them come to us.
Yes.
And I think that's what's needed in government in general.
And, small business is really the glue that holds our economy together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree that making it more accessible to get the resources from the Secretary of the State's office is really paramount to whether or not a small business can survive in Connecticut, which is hard.
It's hard. It's hard work. So kudos to all the small business owners.
Yes, they are awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am so excited to have talk with you. I can't wait to hear more, and I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to come over and celebrate with you when you win your primary. We know that you absolutely have this. And you're probably, like I agree with Denise Merrill, you're probably the only person in Connecticut. You are the only person that we could actually, we could trust with our ballot. It's a big job. And in addition to the business services, it's very important work that has to get done. So thank you so much for talking with us today in Hamden and this New Haven, Hamden area. And we will be in touch.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. I appreciate it. You're terrific. So have a good night.
Have a good night. Take care.